Welcome back to FM Jeeping. My name is Mark and I'm going to get right into it. Sorry for the gap in videos. The last month or so I've kind of got a lot going on. I've been focusing on the family, focusing on my personal life, trying to kind of simplify things and at the same time creating more problems. So in that month time that I was off, I ended up picking up a 2004 Yukon Denali. This has a 6.0 all-wheel drive. It can tow 8,200 pounds, at least factory rated, which is more than enough for my trailer and Jeep. But since you've seen this channel, I can't do anything easy. This thing needed a bunch of work. Originally I thought I was just going to need O2 sensors because I had a slight misfire. Well, come to find out, after O2 sensors, plugs, wires, and brand new injectors, the misfire finally went away. It was a P0300, which is a random misfire, which is very hard to diagnose. It's not as simplified as go to this cylinder and this is the one misfiring. So there was a little bit of diagnostic into it, but basically I had to replace the driver's side bank of injectors. Thought I was in the clear. I took the vehicle to work on the first day after I got registered it, and I got halfway to work and all of a sudden I got a beeping sound. I looked down at the gauges. My transmission overheated. I had no warning other than that. I wasn't really paying attention to the transmission because it's a rebuilt transmission. It only has about 20,000 miles on it, which is another reason why I bought the vehicle. Well, lo and behold, I believe that the torque converter self-imploded or failed, causing the transmission to overheat and ultimately ruined the transmission. I wasn't able to drive more than 20-something feet for just a few seconds after that. So I swapped out the transmission with a used one, and everything seems to be fine. However, now I am on a temporary reg. I have to get this thing past emissions in the next, well, really 60 days. But now lies the next part of our journey. I now have a P0420 code, or 0420 code, which is, I think, bank 1, sensor 2, O2 sensor below threshold. Now, I've used a scan tool. This one got sent to me from TopDon. I'll leave a link down below for these guys. They sent this to me to try to help me out with my problem. We'll take a look at the problem here. Cool little feature about this. It has a light built in, so if you need to look under the dash, try to find the plug. There we go. All right, I got one diagnostic trouble code. Let's take a look at this. We're going to read the codes, and then I already know it's a P0420, catalyst efficiency below threshold, bank 1, sensor 2. And it looks like I got more. Generic, bank 1, sensor 2 again, that's a pending. Bank 2, sensor 2. And that's it. So basically I've kind of come to the conclusion that I believe the cats are slightly clogged, because when the owner drove this to my house with a misfire, I think he might have done something to the cats, might have overheated them or something like that. So we're going to give something I saw on the internet a try. So before I automatically jump to that the cats are bad and that the O2 sensors are probably good, I did scan them. They are showing variance. They're basically chasing the upper O2 sensors, which leads me to believe that the O2 sensors themselves are fine. It's just the cat is not holding enough oxygen or is not working correctly, and then it might be partly plugged. So we're going to go ahead and try a hack that I saw on the internet. Now, Scotty Kilmer is a very well-known auto mechanic on the internet. He claims that if you take roughly 9 to 10 gallons of gas for 1 gallon of lacquer thinner, you drive on the highway over 2,000 RPM for 150 or so miles, or until the light comes off. So the belief of using the lacquer thinner in the system, the fuel system, between the chemical reaction between the gas, the heat, and the lacquer thinner will actually clean out the honeycombs in the cat. Now, I'm no scientist. I just know that everything that I've seen on the internet leads me to believe that this is probably about 80% effective or 80% success rate, and that the other 20% either have severely clogged cats to the point where like it's impacting the performance of the engine, which mine isn't. Mine seems to be performing just fine. It's just that it's not holding enough oxygen in the cat itself, or there's something completely else wrong causing those O2 sense, the P0420 code. I just put 10 fresh gallons of gas in my gas tank, which got me to just above half, which to me seems about perfect. So what we're going to do, dump the gallon of lacquer thinner in, go for a quick, we'll call it quick road trip. Basically it says about 150 miles at 2,000 RPMs or above, so basically highway driving, and it should clear that P0420 code. To me, $40 in gas and lacquer thinner is a hell of a lot cheaper than $1,200 cats. And as you guys, as most people are aware, catalyst converter theft is huge right now because the internals of cats are well sought, and that the materials that they are made with are very valuable. So people are stealing cats at an alarming rate. So I'd rather spend 40 bucks in a couple hours of my time to try to save $1,200 and a couple hours of my time replacing them. So just to kind of reiterate, do this at your own risk. I'm just trying this to see if I can save myself some money. I've got 10 fresh gallons of gas in the Yukon. Got my long funnel. Got my lacquer thinner. Well, let's give this a go. All right, so now I'm going to pack up the kids and go burn off this tank of gas, and then in theory the light should come off somewhere along our journey. I'm going to run the tank down to as low as I can, refill. I'm also going to do a oil change after the fact, so that way I'm trying to basically eliminate as much of that lacquer thinner as possible. The kids are all packed up. It's fired up. Seems to be idling normal. Don't mind the other lights. The one that we're focusing on is the engine light. The ABS one is something that I'm in the process of fixing. But seems to be driving normal, or idling at least. So I'll check back in after we get back on the highway. So something that I failed to mention kind of prior is that there's no guarantee that this light is going to turn off on its own. I've seen some people where they do the complete drive cycle with the lacquer thinner and the light doesn't turn off, but then when they go use the scan tool or the code reader and erase the code, the light won't come back on. So I'm not going to erase it until we get done with the drive cycle. I'm hoping that it goes off on its own, which would be fantastic, because I will then have completed, I think, all the emissions drive cycles, which would be great. Then I can get my full tag for registration. But we'll see what happens. Right now we're about 17 miles in, and we got a little ways to go. So I'll keep updating and go from there. All right, so we're about 51 miles in. Right now, it seems to be completely normal. In fact, actually, it seems to be running pretty smooth. I did have to stop a couple times at some stoplights and whatnot, and it seems to be idling actually a little bit better. Going through the RPMs, at least the lower RPMs, like 1 to 3,000, seems to be pretty smooth. It might just be a mind, kind of like a placebo effect, but we'll carry on. Well, I wasn't planning on this. Luckily, I got about maybe 50 more miles or so. Hopefully this backup isn't last too long. All right, so hopefully I can get this to focus right, but if you can see, bank 2 is staying fairly steady at 0.6. It dipped down a little bit there, but for the most part, that's kind of what you needed to do. You need to stay steady. The one on the top there, that's bank 1. That's a little bit more all over the place, and that's the one that's kind of in question right now. I still got about 50 more miles or so of gas left. Oops. Hopefully we can get that to steady out a little bit. So we've completed the initial tank of gas with the lacquer thinner in. We got just about 124.8 miles with the lacquer thinner in. I was able to maintain about 2,000 RPM most of the time. I did run into some traffic here and there. I did read the, let's see, right now the check engine light did not turn off on its own, at least during our drive. But when we were running, let's fire it up. All right. Let's take a look at this. So we're going to check the data stream. We're going to view items, graphic items here. We're going to take a look at the two O2 sensors, bank 2s. Or not bank 2, sensor 2, sorry. All right, so now we got the engine running. We're looking at the two downstream O2 sensors. The one on the top is bank 1. The one on the bottom is bank 2. So this is driver on the top, passenger on the bottom. It looks like passenger is where we want it to be. It's a little bit more stagnant. It's not bouncing around nearly as much. Driver side, actually, just as I'm saying this, is bouncing around a little bit, but for the most part, it's gotten a lot better than what it was. When I first started this test, it was at like 0.1 all the way to 0.8. Up there, it goes down to 0.1. So I might still have a problem with bank 1. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to go ahead and clear the code. We're going to go ahead and clear the code and see if it comes around. Again, erase codes. Yes, yes, and now the engine light is off. Now I'm going to go ahead and put some more fuel through the tank, normal fuel without lacquer thinner, put a couple more miles on and see if the check engine light comes back. I have a feeling it's probably will, and I most likely will have to replace the driver's side cap. I have one I can weld in that I think will fit, but we'll cross that bridge if the light comes back on. Couple quick takeaways. I did have a slight hunting idle. Right now my idle's dropped a hair and is more steady. Driving during the whole test did not seem to, the lacquer thinner did not seem to affect the performance really at all. If anything, it made it a little bit better, but that, once again, might be placebo. And time will tell. We'll put some mileage on this new tank of gas, see if the light comes back. If not, awesome. I just saved myself a ton of money. If so, it looks like I'm going to be buying one side of cats and not the other, which would be great. It saves me a little bit of money. It's still money I didn't want to spend, but it's still better than buying both of them. So I'll update you after I put a tank of gas through and see what happens. So it's about a week later. I just took the truck through emissions and I failed. And I knew that going in because this morning when I was driving to work prior to the test, I did get a check engine light, and I checked it again and it said that my driver's side cat was below threshold. Now, prior to putting in the lacquer thinner, I had two bad cats. The driver's side was definitely worse than the passenger side. And I believe driving around, although not very long, but with that misfire, mainly on the driver's side, is what caused that cat to fail prematurely or to fail at all. So I think the mod, or the hack, we'll call it, the Scotty Kilmer lacquer thinner thing, was 50-50 for me. My idle is better. It's a little bit lower. I feel like I regained a little bit of power, although that's probably just a placebo effect. My passenger side cat is now functioning the way it should be, but it did come with some downsides. I think I ended up burning up two of my downstream O2 sensors because after this, I had a fault that I didn't have before, and that was the heater element inside both of those O2 sensors failed. So the jury's still out. Try at your own risk, and you know, you might get lucky. I'll tell you, replacing O2 sensors is a heck of a lot cheaper than replacing a cat. So an update to the update. It's a week later. I've done about 300 or 400 miles in addition to where I was when I originally updated after my emissions test. And I'm actually happy to say that my cat below threshold codes have not come back. My O2 sensor codes have not come back. The only code I'm kind of chasing right now is a large evap leak, which I believe might be fuel cap related, which I pray that's the case. I'm going to throw the smoke machine on the Yukon when I get a chance to see. But I'm almost thinking that maybe I just need a little bit more drive time and keep those cats hot a little bit longer to burn off whatever the lacquer thinner did. Because, like I said, I've driven 300 or 400 miles and I haven't had those coats pop back up again. So I'm pretty confident saying that I think the lacquer thinner might have worked. So if anything changes, I'll update you. And with that being said, I'll catch you on the next one.